Hey everybody, this is Brian Wilkerson here from MA-Motorsports, and this is the first of hopefully many videos that we're going to show you of things that happen around the shop. In this particular video, I'm going to give you a brief rundown and a couple tips and tricks of how I do a custom exhaust system on an R32 Nissan Skyline GTS-T. Let me know in the comments what you think. So the first step will be the easiest, and that's to remove the factory exhaust system. When you're building an exhaust, you always have the starting point at the engine, or in this case, the catalytic converter. Then you need to have your first stop or first connection, and this is going to be the muffler for us. I've located the muffler, and here I am cutting some tubing, fitting it up to go from the cat to the muffler. The horizontal bandsaw is an important piece of equipment when fabricating exhaust systems. I'll use it any time I'm cutting a straight piece of tubing. For bent tubing, I'll use the vertical bandsaw. And then, as always, I'll use the belt sander just to get the edges flat. Deburring is important too. Even during the fit-up process, I make sure my tubes are deburred and that they fit up properly. Here I am making sure that the muffler stays straight and is parallel with the bottom of the car. This can often take a fair amount of patience, especially when using one screw stand and having a loose connection at the catalytic converter side. If you look closely, I have a little piece of wood shimmed up there under the muffler just to keep the muffler straight, looking at it from the back of the car. Once I have it in place, I can then start to tack everything where I want it. Again, you have to be careful not to bump it, or you'll be cutting a bunch of tacks off and starting all over again. Gonna get a few tacks here on the flange of the cat. I'm gonna try and get 3 or 4 at least. You want them to be pretty sturdy so that you can take it on and off the car without it moving. Then I'm going to adjust the muffler side. Probably put a shim in there just to keep it away from the sway bar, and then tack that together. Here I'm just showing you the ground clearance compared to the frame rail. I got it pretty high. No tubing is lower than the frame rail except for the original catalytic converter, and then of course the muffler a little bit as well. Putting a dry bend in my hanger material here. Only need a little bit of angle. This is all done by eyeball really. Looks like I was gonna put the hanger on the bottom of the muffler, but now it looks like it'll work a little better if I mount it to the top. Now we start working on the tip side of the exhaust, so the very end. This particular job, we're doing what most people call blast pipes, which is like twin pipes right next to each other, usually pretty big, associated with straight pipe loud exhaust systems. Even though this one hopefully won't be too loud with the muffler we got in there at least. Today is a new day, and I got on my sweet HGK Racing team shirt, and I got my straight edge on the vertical bandsaw, and I'm cutting these tubes. Making sure they're sitting flat. Yep. Getting there. Most visible part of the exhaust, so I'm going to put a little DA finish on it just so the tubing all looks uniform. This is an easy way to make sure I got a full 3-inch entry into this tip section here. Feed them right through the vertical. Start tacking on my extensions, that way I get a little more length on the tube. It's easier to see that they're parallel when they're longer. Got my cuts nice and straight, so now I can weld these tip extensions on for good. This bumper was designed for one single exhaust tip and much smaller than even just one of the two tubes we're using, so I've got to trim it out as carefully as possible. I want the fit to be spot on. After some measurements, I run it over with the air saw, and then I deburr it some with just a hand file. Alright, so we have the end of the exhaust and where I left off before, just before the differential. So now all I have to do is connect these two, and we're done. Start piece by piece. Got to get it at least started in the right direction, shooting towards the tips. Got to constantly check those tips, make sure they're at the right angle too. And we're getting there. Yep, got it right underneath of the axle, we'll call it. A little bit of space to the hicus, just so we have room and there's no ground clearance issues or any rattling. And we fit in that last piece. Start tacking it together. Always double checking to make sure those tips are straight and at the right angle. Then we replace these 20-year-old hangers with some fresh ones that don't move as much. Get started on bending these things up, trimming them, the old horizontal saw, putting in some work. I can get a real tight radius by cutting them both on a 45 degree like that. Got my little mobile workbench set up here with a piece of scrap tin work that I must have botched at some point in the past. This just allows me to work closer to the car. Here we are with the hangers all welded together. It's the first one I bent up, and these are the mitered ones in the back to keep it nice and tight. Got a couple of reinforcements on there and our little MA logo just to keep the tubes from splitting or cracking. And this is it, all finished up on the floor.